You made that whole comeback on the season looking like the most dangerous team in football just a couple of weeks ago. I had y'all in my top 5, only to miss the playoffs because you can't beat the Jaguars? God, to think anybody said that you were a Super Bowl contender. Welcome to the jungle, everyone. I'm Kyle Phelps, and we made it! We're finally getting into the meat of things, with playoff football just over the horizon. Before we get into the final power rankings of the 2021 regular season, and trust me, we're still going to be covering the NFL on Tuesdays throughout the playoffs, just in a bit of a different format, I just ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. It really helps my channel out, and it helps you to be the first to know when we put out all of our awesome content. I've been covering the NFL on Tuesdays with these power rankings, and I'll be doing something else throughout the playoffs still on Tuesdays. Then, there's the Bengals Previews that we do with our excellent team of correspondents before every Bengals game. We'll be doing that for at least another week. And then the recaps that come after the Bengals games, again, for at least another week. Then we do Battle of Ohio podcast clips on the off days, and that'll be continuing for basically forever. Also, with the off-season just a month away, look out for all new forms of content that I'll be putting out with the NFL no longer writing my content for me, basically, until next August. So, as a recap for the final time this year, we do these power rankings in a tier list form, so I can get some commentary in there for every NFL team and still put out like a decently watchable video, like as far as length goes. We're going to start with Tank Time, and this is the absolutely awful teams, guys, that really need some quality focus work this offseason. That's why we call it Tank Time, because while obviously there's no more tanking to do right now, you know, these are the teams that basically they needed to be tanking this year so they could get the best possible draft positioning and maybe get something going on at some point. Then there's the bad teams, whom I think do have some pieces worth building around, but they still have plenty of work left to do themselves. Next category is known as the playoff hunt. Usually these teams are the teams that I think have an outside chance to make the playoffs. Obviously right now we already know who's in the playoffs, so it's not really relevant for this particular year, but as far as next year goes, I think, you know, with a little bit of work, maybe these teams can be pushing for the playoffs next year. Next up is the playoff hopefuls. There's nothing to really be hopeful about at this point. Like I said, we already know who made the playoffs, and most of these teams are in the playoffs right now. Then there's also team number 15 and team number 16 that didn't make it. They just barely missed, just barely. Then it's the contenders. These teams, we know they're making the playoffs. I expect these to be the teams that are going to be dangerous in the playoffs. These are going to be the teams that are probably going to be advancing to the next round. And finally, it's the Super Bowl caliber teams. And quite honestly, guys, if you need me to explain this one to you, then I can't really help you out. Let's kick things off with Tank Time. The New Jersey Giants are a fucking mess. So there's my number 32 team. That's it. That's the analysis. Why the hell is Joe Judge still the coach? Hey, I mean, at least Gettleman's gone, right? At number 31, it's Jacksonville Jaguars, who knocked the goddamn Indianapolis Colts out of the postseason and sent the Steelers to the postseason. I would absolutely love to see this team with some actual direction for once. Maybe Marvin Lewis and Mike Zimmer can team up again in Duval? Man, that'd be so cool. Number 30 is the Detroit Lions. They're a very bad football team right now, even if they did beat the Packers B team. But a few more high-quality moves in the offseason, and maybe Dan Campbell can really kind of start to turn this thing around for real. At number 29, I feel like the Carolina Panthers just kind of quit this year, you know? Obviously, it's too early, I feel, to move on from Matt Rule, but he's going to need to show some real progress this year to justify sticking around. Number 28, the New Jersey Jets are officially the best team in New Jersey. That's obviously not saying much, but I feel like they've shown some real signs of life in recent weeks. Perhaps Robert Saleh can exercise those demons and, give it a year or two maybe. Next up, we're kicking off the bad teams. At number 27, it is the Washington football team. This team kind of feels like it's in limbo, They've They've got by far and away the worst ownership group in all of football, and their team just feels completely directionless right now. Ron Rivera, in my opinion, is a pretty good coach, but I don't see how he can keep his job long enough at this point because they're just in a complete state of chaos for them to actually rebuild themselves into a legitimate contender before the calls for his job end up getting loud enough that they have to move on from him. Number 26, the Houston Texans. They're obviously bad, right? But I do think that there's some life there. Maybe David Culley and Davis Mills were the right guys for the job after all, and we laughed at them. It's gonna be a long time before the Houston Texans get back to where they used to be, but finding a way to move Deshaun Watson and actually getting compensated for losing him would probably be a good way to start. Number 25, the Chicago Bears are finally free of Matt Nagy, but I'll be honest, I don't really exactly see how that makes them better. I mean, it doesn't make them continually getting worse, but I just think they're in a rough spot right now. Hopefully Justin Fields' growth isn't stunted, but I just don't see much direction for this team right now. Speaking of direction, at number 24, the Atlanta Falcons feel like they do have a bit more direction right now than these other teams that we've been talking about, but they still have plenty of work left to do before they can realize all that potential. Finally, at number 23, the Seattle Seahawks. They spoiled the Cardinals division championship, and that seems like the best way to end this weird saga with Russell Wilson. If it is his last game in a Seahawks uniform, at least he went out a winner. Next up, it's the playoff hunt, or like I said earlier, next year's playoff hunt. We're starting off with the Denver Broncos at number 22. Drew Lock, being in Denver, only complicates things, for real. He's too talented to keep on the bench, but not really talented enough to win you games. Whoever their next head coach is really going to have to solve the quarterback issue. Number 21, it's the Minnesota Vikings. Was firing Mike Zimmer really the right move? I mean, I get moving on from Rick Spielman, I do. But Mike Zimmer's been in Minnesota for almost a decade, and he's won some playoff games with the team that he's had. It wasn't his fault that the franchise weighed their salary cap down with that awful Kirk Cousins contract. Number 20, the Baltimore Ravens have a lot of work to do in the offseason. Lamar Jackson's style of play, while really impressive sometimes, isn't going to be sustainable for another 10 years. So, I think they need to figure out something now so that they can win now and take advantage of Lamar Jackson being an elite level quarterback now. Number 19, I've got the Cleveland Browns. God, talk about limbo, man. I think they need to keep Baker Mayfield around if possible. Not just I think it would be a good idea, I think they need to. I don't think they have a better option. This franchise's problem has always been their propensity for drama and their inability to commit to developing coaches and players. If the Kevin Stefanski era is going to work out, then they need to accept that there's going to be some down years and kind of let the ship right itself. Number 18, I've got the Indianapolis Colts. My God, Colts, you made that whole comeback on the season looking like the most dangerous team in football just a couple of weeks ago. I had y'all in my top 5, only to miss the playoffs because you can't beat the Jaguars? God, to think anybody said that you were a Super Bowl contender. Finally, I've got the Miami Dolphins at number 17. I might be the only person on the planet, maybe not the only person on the planet, but I mean there's a lot of people who disagree with me, that I think moving on from Brian Flores was the right move. I've been railing against him for a while now. He refused to develop Tua, and from what I hear, he was the one who was pushing for them to trade for Deshaun Watson. He doesn't seem to have any interest in developing players. He's too volatile of a coach to rebuild a team like the Dolphins. I still think he could be a great coach somewhere that on a team that's like ready to go win right now, but the Dolphins I think right now are better off trying to rebuild without him. Moving along, it's the playoff hopefuls. At number 16, I've got the New Orleans Saints. They did everything that they needed to do in Week 18 to make the playoffs, but unfortunately they also needed help from the Rams, and the Rams couldn't give that to them. They're right on the verge, though. I think they'll get a quarterback next year, and they're going to be right back in the mix next year. Number 15, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. It didn't have to be this way. You could have just let Bisaccia run the clock out, guys. But it's your fault that we have to sit through the Steelers in the playoffs. I hope you're happy. Speaking of which, number 14 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ugh. God, I wanted to bury this team so badly, man. And they gave me every reason to do it with the way that they played this year. But at the same time, guys, I mean, if this is proof of anything, this is proof that I try not to let my bias seep in when I'm making these rankings, when I'm doing any sort of like real analysis. Even I have to admit that Mike Tomlin has done a Hall of Fame level coaching job this year to get them to the playoffs. Oh, God, I'm going to be sick. Number 13 is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I'm not entirely sure how deserving they are of the playoffs either because of the teams that they've beaten, but you still have to beat the teams that are in front of you. And the Eagles did that, so they got in. And credit to Nick Sirianni for being one of those coaches that we all laughed at in the offseason, and then here he is in the playoffs in his first year. Number 12, it's the Arizona Cardinals. I'm losing a lot of confidence in their ability to actually win in the playoffs right now. They couldn't even beat the absolute destitute Seattle Seahawks with the division title on the line. To think this team was once my number 1 in the power rankings. This kind of shows you how far they've fallen this year. Finally, at number 11, I've got the Las Vegas Raiders. And God, I'm so damn proud of them, man. After everything they've been through, and they still managed to make the playoffs. And hey, I'm sorry, but my Bengals are going to have to kick your ass this week. But seriously, congratulations on making the playoffs and just getting here in the first place after everything you've been through. If Zach Taylor loses Coach of the Year to Rich Bisaccia, I'm not even going to be mad. Now this is where it starts getting good. We're moving on to the contenders. Starting off with the New England Patriots at number 10. I know they lost to the Dolphins when they could have possibly won their division this week, but it was never going to pan out that way with the Bills playing the Jets anyway. Now, we get to watch the Pats and Bills square off one more time this season. Are you not entertained? Number 9, it's the San Francisco 49ers. They needed to beat the high-powered Rams to make it to the playoffs, and they did it twice. The NFC West is so confusing, man. Number 8, it's the Tennessee Titans. Getting that bye week to give Derrick Henry some extra time to get ready, that's huge. But I think even with Derrick Henry back in the fold, they're still going to need to play better than they've been playing lately for it to matter. And number 7, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't you ever count out Tom Brady. The postseason's where he lives, and that's where we are now. And they get a relatively easy matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles this week. And it wouldn't be the first time that an underdog Eagles team has bested Tom Brady, but I'd be shocked if it happened this week. And at number 6, I've got the Buffalo Bills. It got a little tight in there against the New York Jets this week, but the Bills figured out what they needed to do, and now they head into the playoffs on a 4-game win streak. Can they make it 8? Finally, we're going to wrap things up with the Super Bowl caliber teams. Number 5, I've got the LA Rams. Now, Matt Stafford's been a little erratic lately, and that kind of worries me. If they don't make it to the Super Bowl, that's probably why. There's also a decent chance that they're going to need to figure out how to get past the 49ers to even make it to the Super Bowl. Number 4, I've got the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know why they played Dak and Zeke this week as much as they did. I mean, were they trying to play for awards? Or were they trying to play for records? I'm not entirely sure. It was kind of a weird decision, but I guess nobody got injured, and they did kind of like show the world why they're one of the favorites in the NFC this week, because the Eagles are a playoff team. And if they're going to do that against the Eagles, then, the Eagles don't have much of a chance, and the Cowboys have got to be one of the favorites. Number 3, I got the Cincinnati Bengals, just like last week. And why is that? I know they lost, but it was about the equivalent of importance of a preseason game. The Bengals, there was potential to fight for seeding a little bit there, but they didn't get the result they needed from the Chiefs. They didn't get the result they needed from the Titans. And they ended up getting to play the Raiders instead of the Patriots by losing. So, did they really lose? Number 2 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They found a way to get it done against a team in the Broncos that is tougher than their record indicates. And that's playoff football right there, baby. Finally, at number 1, once again, is the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, they were losing to the Lions before Aaron Rodgers went out of the game. And, I didn't forget that. But no one in the NFL had a more consistent season than the Green Bay Packers this year. So I don't think anyone's better set up to win the Super Bowl, and therefore I don't think anyone's more deserving of the number 1 spot. So let me know what you think, guys. Obviously, the teams that made the top 14 are pretty much non-negotiable, but the order always is. Is your favorite team too high? Are they too low? Should I have knocked my Bengals down this week because they lost a meaningless game against the Browns? Tell me in the comments below, and I'll feature the best comments in my next Power Rankings video, or I guess whatever it is I replace this video series with next week. Like this one from Majestic YT, who said, "Congratulations on the win, man. That was an awesome game. Cowboys lost, but it's alright because we've been done clinched the playoffs, and the Cardinals wanted to win just a little bit more than us. But it's all good. We will still make a good playoff run." Well, they got the win this week, Majestic YT. I put them right back up where I had them before they lost to the Cardinals, because this game, even though it was a bit meaningless and it was a little bit reckless, I think, but it was still a statement win to beat a playoff team like the Eagles like that just before the playoffs start. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. You can always find more of what I do at KylePhelps92 on Twitter, Facebook.com/ThePhelps. My Bengals coverage was available at ATBNetwork.com/Cincinnati Bengals. The Battle of Ohio podcast, which is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and right here if you subscribe. But anyway, like I said, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll leave y'all, as always, with a hootie!